Vice President Pence is touring the country promoting the president's agenda, focusing on the big tax cuts. And the numbers he's touting certainly sound good. Here's the vice president this weekend in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Since President signed our tax cut into law, got a little bit of good news that came along is that more than 6 million Americans have already received bonuses or pay raises or bigger benefits, even before all the tax cuts have gone into effect. I was told coming in today, 56,000 workers across Tennessee have already received a pay raise or a bonus following the president's tax cuts.
6 million Americans and 56,000 in Tennessee with a pay raise or a bonus thanks to the tax law. That sounds very good. But let's give you the total numbers. 6 million of the total U.S. labor force of 161 million people is just 3.7% who saw any kind of increase in pay or bonus. And as for the 56,000 in Tennessee, that is less than 2% of the state's workforce seeing more money in their paychecks. In fact, overall wages are down. People are working longer hours for less money. Inflation is rapidly on the rise, and the average consumer is bracing for an increase in their groceries thanks to the president's brewing trade war. If there ever was a time that the U.S. workers needed a pay raise, it's now. Joining me now is the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, Kevin Hassett. Kevin, 50% of Americans, and I'm not talking just Republicans, I mean all Americans, feel good about the way the president is handling the economy. The economy is a winning argument for this administration. Why would the administration wage a trade war and risk losing it?
Well, I think that what we're in is a trade negotiation or a trade reform. You know, I think that, in fact, the president has probably more support amongst Democrats than Republicans in the view that the trade deals need to be renegotiated to be better for American workers. And he's working hard to do that. We've got a bunch of Europeans coming here this week. And so I think that in the end, what's going to happen is that other countries that have big barriers to our exports are going to lower them because the president's going to negotiate better deals. But you're right that at this time, right now, what you're seeing mostly is uncertainty, and that uncertainty is a little bit rattling for markets and something to keep an eye on as we watch the economic data roll in. Finally, the last thing I wanted to do is come back a little bit at you on the wages, because I think the best measure of wages is the Employment Cost Index, the ECI, and over the last 3 months, that's increased at an average rate which, you know, if you extrapolate it for the rest of the year, would be 4% wage growth, which is really impressive. And so I think that, you know, the anecdote that the vice president gave is starting to be seen in the data as well.
Supervisory roles. We're not arguing that executives, they're making bank. I'm talking about low-wage workers, and if you look at the BLS numbers from June 2017 to June 2018, they're down.
Yeah, well, one of the things about the BLS numbers that we've been working a lot to smooth through is that you saw that in the last month, 600,000 people entered the labor force, and, you know, we're looking at millions going back to 2016. And those people, it's really good news that they're doing that. Those people that enter the labor force tend to be people who are out because they have lower skills. And so that has an effect on the average because you have more low-skilled workers in the labor force. We've done a correction for that, looking at the changes in the median. And, yeah, we could give you a scoop now. We're getting ready to put some stuff out at the CEA that shows what happened to median wages and how this composition effect affects wage changes. And it's worth almost 1%. It's worth almost 1% that you're averaging over a lower skilled group. And so I think the wage numbers are going to definitely get better. You know, we're looking on Friday for a number well north of 4% for second quarter GDP. When you've got that kind of economic strength, it's going to be good for workers too. But I think we're already seeing it in the data.
When you look at all of these companies, and it's a big positive news, some were at the White House on Friday that are committing to hire more people in these jobs training programs. With that commitment, are they going to agree to certain wage parameters? Because the story we're hearing time and again, it's not that there aren't jobs out there. There are loads of jobs, but there's not enough jobs that pay a living wage. When you've got Amazon employees or Walmart employees that are on government assistance, it just doesn't seem to make sense.
Right. You know, you're right that there's been a hollowing out of the middle of the workforce, and this is something that the president spoke to during the campaign, and something that Ivanka and I were on TV last week talking about the president's new initiative that's going to try to get people the skills that they need. You know, if you look at it, 51% of people who lose their job have to change industries. And if you're doing that, say, when you're 40 or like me in your late 50s, then that, you know, it's really hard to change industries. You've got to acquire new skills. Right now, if you look at government spending, we spend almost $200,000 per person to train them before they're 22. But after that, it's only about $12,000 for the rest of your whole life. And so people are having to change occupations in the middle of the career, and there's not really much government assistance for them as they try to find new human capital. And so that's something that the president and Ivanka have been talking a lot about over the last few weeks, because we've got this pretty bold new initiative to try to fix that.
It's a great idea. It's a great initiative. Where's the money going to come from? Because many people worry that with all the budget cuts that have happened, we don't know where you're going to find that money. Can you tell me?
Yeah, sure. So the American Council for the American Worker, which I'm a member of, which was established last week by the president, is going to study the training issue and suggest improvements. And I think that it's going to be pretty easy to improve, because right now we've got 45 training programs. Who's going to
pay for it?
No, I was just about to get there. So we've got 45 training programs scattered across 12 agencies. So you've got massive redundancy in terms of supervision of it. And nobody's really compared, program number 7 to program number 22. And what we're going to do at the council is we're going to say, hey, of these 45 programs, we should kill these 20 and pour all the money into these other ones, and then spend the money more efficiently. So I think that as a first pass, we could definitely do it without increasing spending. But you're right that if you look at the U.S. compared to the rest of the OECD, the countries that are most developed like us, then we're second from the bottom in the amount of money the U.S. government spends training workers who are displaced. Second from the bottom, Mexico is the only country that's below us. And if you consider, and this is something that at the Council of Economic Advisors we've been studying, that going forward, that by 2030, it could be as many 60 million people lose their jobs because of automation, then we've got to start to get our economy ready for this reskilling that's going to be, it's happening now, that's going to be in the future as well. And so I think that that's something that's a major focus of this White House right now.
It's an important focus. America certainly needs it. In the meantime, the American economy is going so well. The president and Sarah Sanders have said it's the best we've seen since World War II. Then why is it that the president is going after his own Fed chair, Jerome Powell, saying that we shouldn't see rates rise when, in fact, when Obama was in office, the president was claiming that Janet Yellen was holding rates down to help President Obama politically. Can you help me understand the argument he's making against Jerome Powell and rates?
Look, I 100% respect the independence of the Fed, and I would never want to suggest that they do this or that as a policy. I think that the president participates in public debates, and he says his opinion about what interest rates should be, but he in no way is trying to coerce the Fed into doing this or that. He just shares his opinions with his supporters. That's something the president does quite well.
Well,
but
he has
I would never want to step out in front
at this point. He's president of the United States. And why is it that rates, maybe you could help me understand, if the economy is doing so well, why should we keep rates so low? If we keep them this low, and we do in fact face a recession, remember this is a 9-year bull run, we won't have any cushion. So why does the president or the administration think we need to keep rates so low?
The president has tweeted what he's tweeted, and again, I can say that I want the Fed to do whatever they decide to do because they're super professional there. But, I was on stage a few weeks ago and somebody asked me if I thought that it was the wrong time for the tax cuts because you're going to overheat the economy. And I responded on stage and said, well, actually, since the tax cuts are causing a capital spending boom, which is in the data, which is good for workers because they have more machines to work with, then the capital spending boom increases supply, which puts downward pressure on prices. Now, when I'm saying that, I'm implicitly delivering a message that maybe the staff at the Fed would look at and then analyze themselves and see if they see it that way. And I think that that kind of debate is healthy. What you don't want to do is have someone say, hey Fed, you got to do this, hey Fed, you got to do that, and that's not anywhere close to what the president's doing, and we all respect the independence of the Fed. Absolutely, there's no effort underway to try to coerce them to do anything at all.
You mentioned something that would be a big positive. You said right now we're not in a trade war, we're in a trade negotiation. When the president was discussing that with my colleagues at CNBC, he said he's got the cushion to do it as it relates to the market because we're playing with the bank's money. Do you know what he means by that? Because as it relates to the bank's money, that would be individuals' deposits.
I think that right now there's uncertainty in markets. If you look, there have been times when we've announced the next step and then markets have gone down that day. We've all noticed that. And I think that uncertainty can be a negative for growth, but when growth is as high as it is right now, it's a good time to take on these big long-run challenges. And I think that that's really the main point that we have on this. And so the hope is that very soon the deals will start to roll in. I'm hearing really good things about negotiations with Mexico, and again, the Europeans are coming here to try to work out a deal as well. President Trump wrote The Art of the Deal, not The Art of War, and I think that we're going to start to see the deals that he plans to deliver for America's workers.
I got to clarify that. He didn't write The Art of the Deal. In fact, the person who co-wrote it has said that the president is not a master negotiator. So while he says he wrote The Art of the Deal, he didn't. And I do want to ask you quickly before we go.
I got to say, when I read it, it sounds like him. If someone else wrote those words, then they really know him well, because when I read it, it sounds like.
Well, the person who wrote it says, well, you know what? We're going to leave it there. All right, Kevin, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
I appreciate your time. Coming up, with 500 pieces of evidence and 5 potential witnesses promised immunity.